I shall start the recording. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Lovely People webinar tonight. So tonight we have the lovely Nick joining us, Nick Bottini. And I managed to take 5 minutes out of my crazy day today and have a quick chat to Nick, because I have to confess to not knowing him very well, but we had a really good chat, and yeah, I think he's okay. I think he passes the lovely person. I think he's a lovely person. So far, he's doing well. So you told me some really interesting things when we caught up earlier, Nick. And what we do here really on our Lovely People webinar is we hang out, we have a bit of fun, we have a bit of a laugh, we kind of talk a little bit about the principles, you know, this thing that we're all interested in, this thing that seems to have changed a lot of things for a lot of us. So we like to kind of see where your connections there are. But yeah, so can you tell us something, you were telling me something really interesting about your book actually, and what you were doing and how you came across the principles. So any of that stuff you'd like to share with us would be great.
It's quite a long story. I'll try and keep it a bit brief. So I'm a musician, and I studied music, I studied violin, and I had violin lessons sort of started around the age of 8 or 9, and gradually over a number of years I found myself in quite a lot of shoulder pain from hunching my shoulder and suddenly getting, doing last minute practice the day before the lesson, that kind of thing. And as I got older and I realized that music was a huge part of my life and something I was really passionate about, I suddenly got serious. That's the first warning sign, right? I suddenly got serious about music and realized I wanted to study it at university and music college, and the pain that I'd kind of been tolerating had suddenly got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then I realized that it was something that I couldn't stop when I was playing. And so I still, I went to university, I was studying as a performance major, studying violin, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to put in the amount of hours of practice that I was expected to do. I was surrounded by people who were practicing 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and I was struggling to hold the violin for more than about 20 minutes because it was painful to me. I'd struggle through like orchestral rehearsals, but I'd have to I'd be wincing and it would be horrible, and this was, I found it in a very kind of high pressure environment and quite a stressful situation to be in, having this music within me trying to come out, desperately trying to sort of refine my musical skill, but just not being able to do it. And rather than getting really depressed about it, although it did sort of bring me down a bit, but my solution, rather than sort of drink or drugs or anything, was to go looking for stuff. So I kind of stumbled across things like NLP and sort of self-help books, and then via the usual suspects, I came to the James Smart, the principles, the 3 principles. And by that point I'd kind of just realized that I couldn't really become a professional violinist, obviously, because I couldn't play, but I'd picked up an instrument that I used to study at school, which was the saxophone. So I was playing more saxophone and all that kind of things, and I was doing professional gigs, but it was, my main thing was being a classroom teacher. So I was a head of music at that time, and I was thinking I wanted to leave teaching and all that sort of thing. And the principle just kind of knocked me for 6, really, because it's like I'd spent many years really struggling, really thinking that musical mastery was this special thing that you had to grind away and sort of like sacrifice and put in the hours and fight through the pain and find the right mindset, and it was as simple as being a child playing with crayons on my parents' living room floor or whatever. It was just there was a lot less to do than I'd ever realized, and I didn't realize that kind of playfulness kind of applied to adult musicians too, and to beginners, and you're allowed to have fun while whilst playing a musical instrument, you know, and lo and behold, when you take things less seriously, then the chances of making progress and finding out about your artistic voice and creating things easily and not caring too much about what people think about your performance, or not getting full of anxiety before a performance, all those things kind of go up because you're not doing a load of thinking, you know. Who'd have thunk it, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of was doing training with Jamie, and having a coaching conversation with somebody, and kind of realized that there was no one really that had written anything about the principles and music. So I was suddenly hit by the realization that, you know, shit, it's going to be me that's going to do that. I'm going to be the guy that writes the a music principles book, and that's kind of happened, and it happened quite quickly. But it's, you know, getting the thing out has taken a little bit longer, but that's where I find myself as we.
So you've recently written a book.
So yes, I've written a book about.
So what's your book called?
It's called Just Play: The Simple Truth Behind Musical Excellence.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about it, actually, because there's a load of great people behind the project. You know, I reached out to a few people because
so name drop. Come on, name drop.
I'm going to name drop. Okay. There's a big focus on mental health and well-being in the music industry. Anyway, there's this piece of research that came out last year about well-being, saying supposedly that musicians are 3 times as likely to suffer from anxiety and depression, which I don't buy into. But when I saw that, I thought, right, I need to hook up with this charity, right? So I reached out to a load of musicians. So Evelyn Glennie, Jacob Collier, Mikey Craig from Culture Club, a load of Bill Lawrence from Snarky Puppy. So there's a variety of people from different sort of genres of music. There's a cellist from the London Philharmonic.
Wow.
A professor of violin at the Royal Academy. So I went to lots of people who I thought would have an interest, and they've all, you know, helped with testimonials and are behind the thing.
So have some of these people read the book and read your, you know, the
Oh yeah, they've all read it.
Wow.
Yeah, they've all read it.
That's cool. Because I mean, that's you know, when we were speaking earlier, what I said, I'm all for getting this out there in any way that we can, because one of the things that I love about the principles is how universal they are to everyone. You know, if you're a human being, and in my experience, human beings tend to we get in a mess one way or another, usually at some point in our lives. We get ourselves into some sort of pickle, don't we? And it's just really, really brilliant, these principles, how amazing they are anywhere. So that's great. So you were telling me earlier about that you're doing some crowdfunding or something for the book. Do you want to kind of tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, I see, you know, like what you said just then about you know, the principles sort of being universal, and there being so many different ways to sort of reach people. I've really seen that because there hasn't been a book about the principles in music before, this is a great opportunity to make a load of noise, and as much noise as possible. So I'm trying to make it a very noisy kind of book launch.
You need a drum then.
Yeah. I've got a saxophone. And I'm going to crowdfund. So I'm going to crowdfund the costs of the design and the editing. But it's and ask people to sort of pledge to support it, and there'll be a book launch event in June that people can come to. So there's all sorts of like rewards that people can sign up if they're supporting. They kind of get access to. That's the other idea of the whole crowdfunding thing. But it's, you know, it's not necessarily about the money. It's about making the noise about it to get the industry behind it and to get a focus on it, you know. And I've also teamed up with Help Musicians UK, the people that did that piece of research, and I'm going to be donating 10% of the sales to their mental health campaign. again, just to try and galvanize as much support in the music industry, because it was already looking at well-being, you know, in the industry. So the crowdfunding thing is going to go live in the next 2 or 3 days.
Okay, so
I've got a month to make a load of noise. And
oh, well, then you'll have to kind of give me some links to that in case people, you know, it would be great, like you say, to get it out there, get as many people, because however people come across the principles, it really doesn't matter how they do. And it's just, you know, if there's different people in different industries talking about this and kind of pointing everyone to their innate wisdom and their innate health, that is just brilliant. And, you know, one of the things that we always love to do when we have our retreats and when we have our stuff is we like to live life. You know, our lovely people webinars, it's great to sit around and talk about the principles. It's great to do this. But one of the things that we love to do as well is actually do stuff, you know. So we did some hula hooping and we had a music evening, and music is it's a lovely way to express all sorts of things, isn't it? You know, unfortunately, I was not blessed with musical talent or a singing voice, but
rubbish.
Okay,
it's in there. It's in there.
Yeah, look at.
If I had £1 for everyone that said that to me.
Can you see what Beck's doing? I think she's right. You know, if you could teach me to sing, then you're pretty impressive. But no,
well, singing's actually quite. When I say like to learn to sing, it's actually quite easy to get past the first stages of like I can't do it. I'm tone deaf, to being able to hold a note. It's just that people often they haven't learned there is a connection between your brain and your vocal cords, and often most people have only used that connection to talk. They haven't used it to use the full range of their voice.
Maybe
so given up a chance, we'll get a song out of it.
Yeah, well, maybe we should try and do that. That would be
live.
That would be pretty amazing. Yeah, there were an awful lot of people there that would be queuing up and go, no, please don't do that. We will pay you not to.
Pay me to stop, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So could you share with us, if you don't mind, what do you think has been the most useful insight, realization, thing that you one thing you could share with us with the principles that's, you know, sort of changed stuff for you?
Well, for me, it always boils down to, it's always a case of mistaken identity. That to me, as far as I can tell, seems to be the nature of everybody's problems, you know, in inverted commas. And I guess the thing I'd love, I can't give it away, but I'd love to be able to give away is you know, kind of to know that you're this connected energy, and connected is even the wrong word. It's that it's all one life force expressing itself in its own kind of mysterious way. You know, it's the rhythm of life, or the music of the soul, or I don't know what cheesy kind of musical metaphors I could kind of throw out to kind of put a musical slant on it. I'm trying to think what to do, but another thing that definitely hit me very hard and kind of was I guess, you know, transformative for me, was that when I realized that I wasn't my career, I wasn't my achievements, I wasn't my talent, I wasn't even this guy Nick. I'm before all of that, you know, and I'm the same as you. That it's just to know that no matter what the grades on a certificate say, or no matter what my CV says, or that I'm okay, that there's just this timelessness and untouchable kind of quality to the I was going to say human condition, but it's more than that. It's life. It's just pure resilience, pure okayness, pure loveliness, if you want. And and of course, I find myself kind of slipping back and thinking that I am my career or I am my achievement sometimes. But there's always I don't know, something is kind of dislodged, and that connection always feels phony now. And when I think that, if a gig goes badly, or if I'm playing, and I think I might be embarrassed, or I'm on a webinar and I'm not explaining myself very clearly, or whatever, it doesn't matter in the same kind of way that it did before. It still kind of feels real, but it's not that it matters anymore. So it's knowing who you are and who you aren't. That for me has been the most sort of profound direction to look in, and it's something I find myself learning more about. I don't think it's ever something that you ever sort of totally ever figure out and I've totally got it sussed out. So I'd be a fraud if I was saying that I've got it all sussed out, because I most definitely haven't. But I think I know where to look now. I think I know which direction to look if my head's full of madness and I'm feeling that I've got loads to do and loads to get things to get done and things to strive to achieve and strive to be. I'm more inclined to take that with a pinch of salt than I was at one time. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
It does. That really it really hit me actually when you were saying, I'm not my talent. I'm not the grades on this piece of paper. I'm not, because to me, like sort of meeting somebody like you who, you're a musician, and it's very, very easy, I think, to kind of, that's me. That's who I am. That's it. I'm a musician. And obviously, going to university and studying music and how important, what a big part of your life music is. I think it's hugely freeing then to kind of say, that's not me though. There's something more to me than that. And it really, when you said those words, it was wow, because I think that is where we get caught, isn't it? A lot of the people that I speak to, it's clear that when we get into these painful places, when we do those things in our lives that really, really, really look important to us. For me, it might be the fact that I'm a mom or something like that. I'm my children's mom. That's who I am. And then to say, nope, you're not. But we get caught in these identities that we really think define us. We really think, and we get so caught up in the things that. And it was interesting when you were saying about, when you took your exams, the results on the bit of paper, that they look so important, don't they? These things that we think we want, our children to behave properly, or the correct exam, to say that we've got this result when we took an exam or whatever. That really actually hit me when you said, I'm not that.
It's very easy for, well, that's as far as I can tell, especially musicians seem to be up against it a lot, because I think they feel like they're free spirits anyway, a lot of them, and and they feel like they go against the crowd, and so that's somehow their identity. And they obviously they feel good a lot of the time when they're making music. And you can say the same thing about being a parent. The connections with your family make it really seems to make you feel good. And so why wouldn't you associate that feeling good with who you are? I'm a good mum, I'm a good dad, I'm a good violinist, or whatever. But there just seems to be this extra. There seems to be a lot of freedom, I guess, that we're kind of blind to if we do that. It's good to kind of buy into it sometimes and kind of talk in those terms, and I can understand why people say those kind of things, but to really believe that that's how it works, that can get us stuck in ways that we maybe notice. Because if someone knows that they're okay, no matter what their children achieve, or no matter how they play, or no matter what their CV says, or no matter how much money's in the bank, then the options that are available to go and, you know, achieve musical excellence, or be a great parent, or you know, earn lots of money, all those options that were always there, but we sometimes kind of cut them out because you think, oh well, I'm aiming for excellence, or I'm aiming to do a good job. It's almost like all of the options that were always there suddenly open because we haven't got anything on it anymore. And that's how I feel about music. It's like when I feel like my life doesn't depend on playing well, and suddenly I can play badly, and the chances of me playing well go up in a funny sort of way. It's strange how it works, this stuff, isn't it?
It is weird, isn't it?
It doesn't make any sense, but it's just like it's just freedom to mess everything up means actually you don't mess it up.
Yeah. And you have to kind of get into that place of genuinely seeing that, because it's not, I think sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh, this is a guarantee then that if you understand the principles, you're not going to mess up your music anymore. So that's what you're saying. I learn the principles, then I won't mess up my music anymore. And it's kind of like seeing that, you know, if you get into that genuine place of knowing that you're okay, no matter what. That's it, you're okay. It does give you an enormous freedom, and it looks to me like the best experience is available from there. And no matter what it is, it's okay. And sometimes we do still mess up, but a lot of the time, somehow, like you say, without all this stuff riding on it, life just becomes a fun game. You know, whether you're going to be a musician or whatever it is, you know, the stuff we're up to, it's just kind of, let's play at this. Let's just do it. You know, let's see what happens if we just do this, what's going to happen? And it is such a playful place to be in life. And it's just, yeah, I think great music probably comes from that playful place.
Definitely. I mean, I tell you what, it seems to be another important thing that really seems to keep coming up, you know, again and again, is that we go between these two different modes, and I think that's another thing that's really made a massive difference to me. Is like, you know, knowing that we exist in reality, and there's a certain way that the mind actually works, and there's also this equally friendly and benign kind of illusion, but this is how it looks like it works at sometimes, and we just go between hanging out in reality and hanging out in a strange illusion. And as long as we know that we're in that game of sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, sometimes you're feeling good, sometimes you're not, sometimes you're thinking that your feelings come from out there, sometimes you realize there is no out there and it's all internal, then you've kind of got your bearings about how to go through life. But if you think you're the victim of, you know, circumstance or achievement or what have you, then you can spin yourself in circles and less likely to be playful.
It's way harder to be playful when life looks really serious, isn't it?
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah, so it's good to kind of know this is it, isn't it? It's just knowing, sometimes we're just going to be really, really human. Sometimes we're just going to, it's going to look like that person is pissing herself. It's going to look like it's coming from out there. And that's okay. That's perfectly normal for it to look like that. So, shall we see if anyone wants to join in this conversation with us? Shall we see if anyone has got any questions or anything? So if anyone would like to unmute themselves, if anyone's got anything they would like to put to Nick, you know, anything else they would like to know about his lovely musical talent, or anything, please feel free to make a noise.
I promise I don't bite.
So have you abandoned the violin altogether now?
I've played bits and pieces in some orchestral rehearsals recently. I mean, I go back to it, but I've just ended up playing the sax more. I do play the violin in bits and pieces, but it's not in a professional capacity. But I'm pain free. That's the thing that's really cool.
Yeah,
you know, I'm pretty free.
That's amazing, isn't it? That's brilliant that you're pain free.
it's made it. I mean, it was definitely the principles that kind of got me past the last bit of that. And I never expected to have that as a byproduct of going to a seminar about what I thought was running an NLP business, but it turns out to be about life, the universe, and everything. But yeah, no, it's
So you're a full-time coach really now?
Yes, yeah. I was classroom teaching until last August, and then finally made the switch. I've been coaching for a couple of years, but made the jump. So I'm officially a full-time coach, whatever that means.
Yeah, what does
when I'm not playing the saxophone,
So do you play the saxophone profession? Do you do that as well, or?
Yeah, so I do some function playing, some function bands, and session recordings, and like jazz duos and all sorts. So I end up playing quite a lot of sax. I'm involved in various different things. Whenever I'm needed, really, someone will call me and I'll do some playing. So, do a little bit of sax teaching, tiny bit as well.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything they would like to ask the lovely Nick? Everyone's very quiet tonight.
Lots of lovely people here, and lovely questions and lovely conversation coming up. It's just lovely.
We always have lovely people on our webinar.
Well, so I've heard. That's it does what it says on the tin. I think that's
It does exactly what it says on the tin.
So what is the different message then for musicians with respect to the three principles? Because obviously we tune the conversation depending on the audience to some extent. Like when you talk to children, you have different, simpler methods. And is there a specific, or is it just kind of same kind of basis?
It's a good question, actually. I think there's one underlying message, pointing people to who they really are. I think that, as far as I can tell, seems to be the most leveraged thing to do with anybody. And I think I definitely noticed, kind of like I was saying, that I definitely noticed that musicians identify themselves as being musician. Well, yeah. And that's kind of sacred for a lot of them. It seems to be quite sacred ground, and they don't want to hear, obviously, that some of them don't want to hear initially that they aren't their music, because it's like, well, I've invested so much in this. If I'm not my music, then what am I? I'm not special anymore. But so that identity thing, maybe that's why there are so many ups and downs in the music industry. I don't know the answer to that, but it seems to be that the more people are kind of free from how they're playing, and they know that there's no reflection on themselves, that they're free, that they're kind of freer to take a few more risks and put more heart and soul into it. But I think that it's not about musicians or music. It's about the truth. It's not even about the personalities or anything like that. It's purely and simply about what's true about human beings or life. It's a people thing. It's not a music thing. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, it's interesting just to see if there was twist.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all the different places where the principles, find their way into, isn't it? To see, and and that, I suppose, is why it is universal, is why it is helpful to absolutely everyone, because it's a human thing. It's not, and I think we all. It's really easy actually to see it, and I've never thought about it from a musician's perspective, obviously, because although you say I am, or because of not being musical, I've never looked at it from that perspective really. But it was really, as I said, that really did hit me when you said that, and I've seen that with people that I work with and people I speak to. we do get caught in who we think we are. And there is a kind of, there is this thing that appears around music and musicians. We do kind of look at it as special. You know, maybe it's because I'm not clever in that. You know, we do look at it, oh wow, you're so clever.
That's it. I mean, I think another thing that's just come up from Martin's question is that it's common, and I don't think this is just a musical thing, but you just reminded me that musicians love to divide themselves into different categories, and even saying musicians as a separate category, that's not a thing either. It's like you're a musician by virtue of the fact that you're alive, so it's kind of, it's just a word, but they love to, like, professional or amateur or properly trained or classically trained, or are you a reader or are you an improviser? I mean, all of that's meaningless really, but they really love often to kind of divide themselves into separate kind of categories, and that was a real eye-opener for me, actually, I have to say, because I really bought into this fact that there were just these superhumans that were just virtuosos. I some of the things I write about is this this violinist, Jascha Heifetz, who was one of the top violinists that ever lived, and he had a ridiculous kind of CV, starting the violin at the age of 3 and was taught by his father and practiced 8 hours a day and all that kind of things, and then premiered all these violin concertos and whatnot. There are stories of him, having a meltdown at a radio performance because he had performance anxiety. It's like everyday human experience. There are so many stories of mega stars having the same kind of ups and downs that everybody does.
Who would have thought it?
Well, it's crazy, but I've seen people like go weak at the knees when they're talking to someone who's a little bit famous, and it's when I started to kind of realize that there's no division between the people that we look up to and the people that we look down to. It's such a leveler. It's amazing, to think that. It's kind of blown my mind and continues to blow my mind, actually. So we're all musicians. We're all creators. We're all creators.
Yeah.
And it's a roller coaster inside our heads for everybody, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yes.
It's no one escapes that.
No, it is. Hang on, what's Erica said? Hi all, thank you, Nick, for your own insight. Having only come across the 3 Ps last year and personally struggling to gain insight, bear with me. I will get there, lol. How do you see your identity yourself since your own 3P insights? So what's changed about your, how you identify with yourself, and what you've just been talking about, I guess?
I don't think. I think it's a funny question, actually, and it's a great question. I'm trying to think of a way to put it into words. It feels like the story that I'm going to tell somebody about who I am is much more fluid than it used to be. Because I know that bit's a story. So if I say I'm Nick and I'm a coach, or I'm Nick and I'm a musician, or I'm whatever I choose to say, then anything that I say I am, fill in the blank, the I am bit after the blank, that's been made up by the I am.
Yeah.
the energy, the real essence of me. And I say me in inverted commas because it sounds like a separate thing, but it's not a separate thing. The fact that it's not a separate thing, that feels like that's me. And I know that that I am is the same I am for everybody else on this call. It's the same source of I am. We all complete the sentence in a different way on different days of the week, in different moods, with different conditioning or whatever. But the I am is the constant, the awareness, perception, life. That's what feels like home. That's what feels like, if I was going to try and point to what I am, then it's this immense thing. It's this, and I know that when I say this kind of sentence, that it can kind of, I certainly sounded a bit kind of arrogant when I first said it, but like to say it, to feel like I'm like life or the universe or God or all that kind of thing. But that's how it feels. But the story's separate. I don't know if that's kind of answering the question in a helpful way, but it doesn't feel so useful to say I'm Nick the musician even. I know it's a sentence and we're speaking English and all that kind of thing, but then there's the truth of sort of. if there's something you want to ask me about, Erica, then do feel free to probe me for more detail.
For me, when we get into these conversations, it's always like it's a challenge, because we're trying to use words to speak about something that is way beyond any words, and it's kind of like, sometimes we can get jumbled with the words, can't we? But no, that I can see what you're pointing to there. As soon as we begin to identify ourselves as something or someone, we've limited ourselves, haven't we? And we aren't those limitations. And yet then paradoxically, in these conversations, it's easier to kind of say, oh, hi Nick, the musician Nick, cool to see you. But then we have straight away limited ourselves as soon as we do that.
And let's face it, it's not a conscious thing. No one's limiting themselves on purpose, and it's not to say that anyone's more enlightened than anybody else either. It's just that it just seems to me that if you go looking for what's true about the human experience and what isn't true, then once you find one thing that's true, and you can really kind of, I don't know, it touches you in some way, then it's like, oh, if that's true, then this must be true as well. And the more things that you found were made up, it's like unnecessary thinking just kind of falls away, and it's all about the implications of this, and it kind of chunks up to just being simpler, in general. So to me, it's about looking and discovering about the human condition, and we find stuff in the most unlikely places.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey Nick, I've got to go. Got to do my parental thing of making tea. My kid's just done his first GCSE. Yeah.
We all need to come round to yours and eat, Martin.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So thanks a lot. Lovely to see everyone. See you soon.
Nice to see you,
Martin.
Martin.
See you, Martin. Thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure as always.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Within the music industries, how has introducing those to the 3 Ps, how's it going so far?
Great question.
Some headway.
Making a start. It's early days. I mean, I've done my best to try and gather together as many musicians that I can find who already know something about the 3 principles, and talk to them and get them together. And I'm also it made sense to me to go to education, to music colleges. So there's a program we were talking about earlier today about called Finding Clarity in Performance, that I'm doing with some students at Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance. We got some lottery funding, and we're going to be hopefully using it as a pilot to point the music industry, point music colleges in that direction, because there's a lot of there's definitely a lot of interest in students' well-being. You know, because
Yeah.
largely, particularly in the conservatoires, that they follow a very outdated method, which is there's a guru teacher who knows everything, and there's a student who knows nothing, and pretty much anything can happen in those lessons. And the teachers, who are often very good players and who kind of effortlessly have learned how to play their instrument, or have you, then try and teach psychology and get themselves into all kinds of a mess about telling a student how they should be thinking and how they should be preparing. And they don't really have much of an idea of what they've actually done themselves. They just kind of put it into words after the event. So to be able to get into a music college and talk to students about their headspace is something I'm really excited about. So I'm literally starting the first one of those projects next week with Trinity, and sort of discussing with others, and then sort of, and like you know, with the book launch, sort of talking to high profile musicians about it, to kind of whet their interest and to get discussion heading in that kind of direction.
Yeah.
Because there are people with an interest in mental health, but there's also people with now there's a few more people with an interest in the principles, and Mikey Craig from Culture Club, his wife is a three principles facilitator, so he knows bits and pieces. So I spoke to him on Monday as a kind of support for the book. So there are people with connections, but there hasn't been a kind of concerted effort to really say, you know, the three principles in the music industry, here we go. So it's early days, but you know, from what we've seen in different industries like sports and what Garrett Kramer's done, and you know, with coaches and Jamie and you know, like the prisons, and there's all sorts of these arenas where this is sort of coming to be shared, and it's just it kind of takes its course. But in music, it's fairly early days, from what I can tell. But there's definitely interest, and there's definitely people already with who've already started their journey at exploring the principles. So certainly this year there's going to be a lot of talk about it. That's the plan, because I'll be doing quite a lot of it myself. So yeah.
It sounds really exciting, and like the lottery funding thing that you've got, that sounds absolutely brilliant. And yeah, sounds really like you're up to lots of things.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Well, I forgot to say, I'm going to be hopefully, well, in fact I will be talking at the Three Principles conference about this stuff as well. So then if anyone's around, then I think it's the 13th to the 15th of May, something around then. But I'm not sure what date it was, but I'll be at that, talking about that too.
Yeah, unfortunately this year that's the weekend that Beck and Lou are moving down to Devon, so we're not going to make it to the conference, unfortunately. We do often go, but it's just too much going on this year. We can't fit it in, can't squeeze it in. But I'm sure if there's recordings and things, it would be great to hear you talk about it, because that's really good. So what have we? So Erica, is there the potentially reach out to groups of people, community, local choirs, young people, isolated, disadvantaged in some way, who are not able to access college, uni, etc.? Just curious. I mean, I think music is one of those things that it's across the board, isn't it? It's something, it's a language that speaks to a lot of people, isn't it? You know, music. So I think with the things that you're starting with, the, you know, pies you've already got your fingers in, and this whole music industry thing, I think there definitely is that potential, because I've for a long time I've worked with adult beginners as well as like kind of community projects as well. So I've always done a bit of playing with adult projects. So I mean, there are there's definitely a project in North London that I'm sort of involved with, and that's become part of what I do. But I mean, I guess the idea of going to the music colleges and to the top like of the industry with like celebrities and stuff, it is to help. Because not that it needs building credibility, because it just happens to be true, these principles, they're just facts. but for people to kind of grab onto it, because I can imagine
it's going to be the new mindfulness, you know. That's how it feels to me, that somebody in the public eye will pick it up and will shout about it. And it just seems like music, the audiences that pay attention to what celebrity musicians do, or respected professionals, what they're doing, they're some of the most progressive people, and young people as well. So it just seems to make sense to me to go to the top of the industry and to education, to kind of make it a thing as quickly as possible. But yeah, I mean, it applies at all levels. It applies to the person who's picking up the violin at the age of 50 for the first time and fancies a go, or whatever. It's the same operating system. So there's immense potential for it, which is kind of why I wrote the book, because I can't get everywhere.
Can you not?
Not at once. Thanks for responding. Pleasure.
It sounds really exciting. It sounds, and to me it's kind of like doing this and all the different places that the principles are kind of beginning to worm into. At some point we're going to reach a tipping point, and there's going to be more people that do know the principles than don't, or are kind of curious about it, or have know somebody whose life has been changed by this understanding. So it's really great to kind of hear it going into places where it hasn't been yet, to the same extent. And like you say, everywhere else, like where we've taken it into prisons, where we've taken it into schools, where we've anywhere, industry, businesses, coaching, the places that it's kind of already going, it's having a great impact. So it's amazing to kind of take it to new audiences and take it to people who are gonna, at some point we're going to reach a tipping point. That's the fun of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exciting times, actually.
It is very exciting.
It's taken off in the last few years, hasn't it? It really has.
Yeah, very much so. The amount of people who now are hearing about the principles, or are kind of, and I've noticed that in the meetups and things that I do, people might dip into the meetup, they might come along or something, and then they kind of say, well, this person mentioned it, and then this person mentioned it, and then that person mentioned it. So I thought, I better come and see what this principles thing is about, because they're kind of hearing it from different places, and that to me is what creates these tipping points, because people hear it from different people and different places, and they think, oh, in the end they're kind of like, yeah, there must be something to this, maybe this is a direction to at least get curious about, at least sort of have a look. So have we got any more questions? It's absolutely fine, Erica, to hog the questions. You're in there. If you've got something to say, then
get your money's worth, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. And if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it but not asking, or sitting there going, oh, why didn't I think of that? So go, Erica. It's perfect. Or anyone else, please feel free.
Yeah.
Silence.
The sister of music.
You should go and get your saxophone and play for us now.
I'll bust you a tune out. I'll do a little dance if you want.
Yes, please. Have you got your saxophone there?
It would take me about 20 minutes to get it out, but
So should have thought of that earlier. Next time
next time
you must play for us. What's your favourite piece of music to play?
Oh goodness, I love improvising. I love playing jazz. So I think it really goes well with the whole the principles thing as well. But I just love the spontaneity of playing improvised music. So I love playing jazz standards. So things like Autumn Leaves, or blues, or even sort of funkier stuff like 60s, 70s, Herbie Hancock, that kind of thing. It just funky shit. I love it.
We have to get you and Frederick together. We have to get you and Frederick having a conversation. Yeah, you have to listen in next week and listen to Frederick.
Yeah.
It's
Music's funny though, isn't it? Because I think another sort of gift that it brings to the sort of the discussion of the principles and stuff is that it's non-verbal. You know, there's no words associated with it, and people have such a personal relationship with music that even though, you know, it's not the music really causing your feelings, you know, it's almost like it helps us to remember that there's this formless quality to what we are, and something that's before the words. And I think that if there's, you know, talking about the power of music, I think that's what it is to me. It's that it points to it helps us remember that there's something before the form, other than verbal language. And I think that's the power for me. Which is cool, you know, and that's why I particularly love jazz, because the music's being made in the moment. No one's composed it apart from me until I played it, and that's how I'm responding to the bass player in the group or the guitarist or whoever. So the spontaneity of it, I mean, it has to be thought generated. It has to be coming from the moment and coming from the connection with the other musicians. And so yeah, that's why I love jazz.
It's music is an amazing form of creativity, and I think as human beings there's something, I mean, I'm a seamstress, I sew, and I know I have quite a few people coming around my house for various reasons, and we end up, you know, we're sewing. I have sewing people sitting around making quilts and making all sorts of things, and I have noticed when we kind of it's not even necessarily particularly a principles conversation, but there is something about when we drop into that place, when we lose ourselves in that creativity, something happens to us as human beings, because we do go to that place, don't we? The formless place. You know, whatever it is we're doing, whatever it is we're making, it's not been there before. We're creating that. And there's something really powerful, I think, about it. It definitely takes us to that place when I suppose it's the same in sport, it's the same when we drop into that place. It is pretty amazing. Okay, so Erica, again, you mentioned that your physical pain seemed to go. Can you expand upon that in any way, as I have a few physical and other challenges which have led to currently disconnecting from creative endeavours? You did it?
Yeah, I did. It's a really interesting one, because I did a load of I did everything. I did physiotherapy, Alexander technique, acupuncture, some Feldenkrais things. I tried all the isms and schools of thoughts, and it helped me. I did yoga quite obsessively. There's definitely a kind of mechanics to how the body works, you know. But after some series of impactful conversations about the nature of thought, I started to see how many, and this is particularly to me, so I mean, I'm sure there are kind of similar ways that it will apply to in other cases, but I realized that, you know, I had some ideas about what my body was and what it should be and how it should be working when I'm playing an instrument, or how I should be moving. All these kind of like shoulds of, this is good posture, this is good health, this is the correct way to hold it, this is the correct range of motion that my shoulders should have. And I started to see all of those beliefs as kind of being made up, and it wasn't even at a conscious level, but it's just like, it didn't seem to make quite so much sense to be quite so rigid about my relationship to this thing that's housing me, or my body, or however you want to think about it. And as a result of, I don't know, some kind of insightful conversations, I found myself spontaneously doing kind of different exercises, or being able to listen to my body in a way that I wasn't listening in the same kind of way. So I couldn't put my finger on a specific thing that changed physically, but I think I started to notice that my body itself was, this is going to sound weird, but my body is thought up. The body is thought. It's no more tangibly in existence than and then the thing else is, there's I've got it here. There's a fantastic book that I've just started reading by Deepak Chopra called The Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. I don't know if anyone's come across it, but he basically says that, we talk about the body being, however many years old, but really what it's made of is essentially nothing, in terms of like quantum physics or in terms of the atoms. You could say that your body, instead of being, I don't know, 20 years old or 30 years old or 50 years old or whatever, you could say that the body is 15 billion years old given the age of the atoms that are in it. And it's,
I was hoping oh my god.
Or like however long it is, based on the enzymes that are processing or changing, whatever the science is. And it, I think it just kind of, when I realized that what I was thinking about myself was made up, I was also thinking about the body. The body's kind of it's thought as well. It's thought generated. I know that might sound a bit of a big chunk to kind of get your head around to begin with, but it's all one system. It's all the formless creating form, whether it's the form of the physical body or the form of the thoughts that we say about ourselves or what have you. So, but by not looking for a physical, cure, resolution, and exploring the nature of thought, then the things that needed to happen in my body started to happen. I still get aches and pains and whatnot, but I'm a lot more free because I know that I'm allowed to hunch my shoulder, which is a bit. I never used to. I thought I'm not allowed to hunch my shoulder because I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to be aching. But it's designed to move. I used to teach violin students at sort of age of 6 or 7, and they'd put the violin on the wrong shoulder, or it would be in all sorts of places. They hadn't got any idea of right or wrong, or that they were a musician. They would just have this bit of wood and they were messing about with it. And it's the same, that intuitively we don't know how the body's meant to work. We just do whatever makes sense. And I think the more we can kind of lose all the shoulds and the what we think health is and what we think is right or wrong, and hang out in reality in the moment and be able to listen to our intuition a bit more, the right things will happen that need to happen. And I know that can sound incredibly hippie, but as far as I can tell, it seems to be transformatively true. So yeah, it's a bit of a mystery to me, that one, because I was not expecting that. I thought I was always going to be broken physically, but it seems to have helped quite a lot. Strange.
Understanding the principles helps us in ways beyond anything we can know, and absolutely what you described is kind of what we're up to. Why Beck and Lou are moving down here, exactly what we're doing. It's just kind of hang out in that space, hang out in the unknown, and just play and see what happens. See what happens next.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is as soon as you go looking for a particular outcome or a particular goal, then we don't have an idea of exactly what that outcome's meant to be consciously, or like with the little ego mind. It's look in the direction of truth, and what needs to happen will unfold. Will happen. And
then it's nice to play the game, isn't it? It looks to me like if we have those things,
have some fun.
We're going to try and do this. It might be like, I'm going to try and play some great music or whatever. We have a little bit of this is kind of what I want, and then we just play at that and see what the end result is, and it's really good fun. I have just had a really great time talking to you. You truly are a lovely person. You are brilliant.
It's official, yeah.
It's official. Absolutely, yeah. It's been great. You've answered the questions. It's been lovely. I've really, really enjoyed it.
I've loved being here. It's fantastic.
I would certainly, absolutely love to continue this conversation with you another time. I'd love to invite you to come and play some music with us down. Not that I'll be playing music, of course, but come down to Devon sometime and see us. It would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I totally wish you all the best with the book and the other stuff that you're up to. So if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for people to kind of, if they want to, find out more about your book, find out more about what you're up to, what is the best way for people to contact you?
They can contact me on Facebook. I've got a website, which is nickbottini.com. So there's a mailing list on there where I'm telling people about updates for the book and stuff. So if you want to be kept up to date with the book and what I'm doing in the principles world, then definitely the mailing list is a good go-to, because you'll find out everything else that you want there. But you can find me on Facebook and message me. Our paths will cross somehow.
Yeah, brilliant. It's really been an absolute delight. So thank you very much for being our guest tonight, being kind of put on the spot a little bit. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking such great questions.
Cool. And as I've said a couple of times tonight, our lovely person next week is Frederick. And I am sure you would be interested to listen to Frederick next week. He's going to be great. I truly know Frederick is a lovely person. I have known Frederick for a little while, and he is awesome. I love him. He's amazing. So I'm going to have a great chat with Frederick next week. What else have we got going on? So Beck, what else am I supposed to say here?
Really. So we have a workshop on Saturday in Heartland if anybody's local and wants to come along. Our website, our online membership, I think we're closing that off in May for a little break while we move house, aren't we?
Yeah.
So that'll start again in June. And then in June we've also got our next retreat, which is June the 11th to the 15th. And all the information is on our website or the Facebook page, debrasimmons.co.uk.
There you go. What she said. Yeah, so thank you all very, very much for being here tonight. It's been an absolute delight. It's lovely to see you all. And hopefully we will see some of you next week or before next week. If you show up with anything else we do, it would be really great to see some of you. So take care, everyone, and thank you very, very much. I will unmute everyone so that, will I? I will try and unmute everybody. I should never be put in charge of these kind of things. Is everybody unmuted?
Yeah, do you want to stop the recording, Deb?
Let's see.